15th, so, it'll be over there. I gotta get the key a day ahead of time, and, or the afternoon before, or whatever, say close at 4, so, so we should hopefully have that ready to go. I will have,
When was 15th? March 15th?
yeah, 4:30.
Did you say
Probably gonna be a lot of
15th?
people there.
15th.
Now, this is over, sorry, this is, the meeting is gonna be at Cameron for Deer Creek?
Yeah, for these 2 hearings, yeah. We'll still have our normal meeting here on that morning for our regular drainage board, and then just have the hearings over there, so that way more people can be there. And it'll be closer to both the watershed, one's in Camden, one's in Deer Creek, so it'll keep people from having to travel as far. So,
We won't have to have this open, maybe.
yeah, true, we don't have, because they're not gonna. So that's all set and ready to go. Next thing is, new business. I put the work order that you requested on for Johnson Drain, for cleaning that ditch where, Jerry Myers. We got the money coming in, so now we actually got some money to start working with this next year, so.
Okay.
So I got that on as work ordered, and then we had a call in on, number 76 C.W. Jones. It's up in Jefferson Township, up on top of, Carroll Hill, and we had there's a head wall in the woods, and it goes about 300 foot out before we got in the field, and there was a few sinkholes, so, we've got a couple of those fixed, but there's a lot of trees over, so we're gonna, have a camera demo come in, and they're gonna run a camera up to 18-inch tile, to see, make sure there's not a bunch of tree roots blocking the outlet, and that holds a lot of water back, so. If so, we're gonna have an excavator on hand and just go ahead and fix them all better. So, next thing on the agenda, I gave you a copy of a letter, back in, I guess, 1999. We had a landowner on the watershed on the number 103 Timothy Condon, which is right at the bottom of Peterson Hill and Towpath. We've done a lot of work, we've done some good work on that this year, and, this landowner had done some work on, I guess, the east side of the road of Towpath, and they ended up, taking 47.7 acres out of the watershed. We looked back, Beth looked back through all the minutes, and there was never a hearing or nothing on it, or a meeting. They never brought it to the drainage board, so it was never officially vacated, I guess you'd call it, but he just sent a letter to the auditor and had him take them off assessment, back in 2000, so, the farmer that's farming this field now, they're having a bunch of water issues. What we've tiled, it's all dried up and looking good, but across the road is still standing, there's some little wet areas and stuff like that, even after the dry summer we had, so, and the farmer requested that we put it back on maintenance, and then we would have a 400 foot of 8-inch smooth pour plastic put in across the road, or under the road and then across, that would, finish that drain being pretty much completely rebuilt, with all new plastic, so. And it's the same size that's in there now, but, we had reports from back in the 60s that it was already 2/3 full back in, so we know it's not working, and the tile system they put in on the other side, it's not evidently working like they thought, because they're requesting it to come back this way, and they'll do their own pattern systems out in the field, tie into ours, and we just gotta put that 400 foot of 8-inch main in. And then what you said, Ted, we wouldn't really need that.
You don't need to have a hearing, or you don't have to notify because it was never vacated.
I may go ahead and send a letter to the landowner, because he's not the one who really addressed it, the farmer is, it's cash renting it, so, we're looking at, 56, 300, less than $300 a year on taxes, or tax assessments.
Where's this at, on top of the Carroll Hill?
Below Peterson Hill.
Okay, Peterson.
Yeah, it's, basically where Towpath turns off right before you get to the hill. It winds around right by the pond. It's right there at the field on the east side of the road, right there on Brian's side.
Okay.
It's kind of wet right along the road and stuff.
Right.
Like there's like 40 some, I think the pond overflow goes into that too, or kind of.
I think actually seen the pond overflowing down over that hill.
Yeah, so we'll get that, taken care of, we'll bring that, well, you said the former talked to me about it. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of 2020 fall claims. No. Basically, we have we got claims here to submit to the other, counties. We got a claim for $1,064.69 to, send to Cass County. It's for 2 drains, it's on maintenance, we collect it and send the money. Tippecanoe County, it looks like, $320.77. There's 3 different drains we're paying, assessments back to them, we've collected for them. White County, we are doing, $1,438.28, and that's on 6 claims, or 6 different drains, I'm sorry, that we collected money on. Howard County is $180.34, and that's just on 1 drain we collected. And then Clinton County is $707.22, and that's on 2 different drains that we collected on there. And then also, we got claims here for, it looks like, the money we brought back in that's being repaid to the improvement fund is gonna be $53,911.69. Plus, we also were putting in $353.98. That's basically late penalties and, late payments, or penalties and interest is when they pay their, assessments late, they get charged 10%. That money goes directly into the improvement fund, it doesn't go to the drain, it's part of the, way the statute was written, so, just need to get a approval to pay all those claims, or submit the claims for payment. The drain.
We'll make a motion to pay those claims. So moved. I have a motion and a second to pay those claims presented by the surveyor, all in favor? Aye. Motion approved.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is, Pondview Acres subdivision. And we have a, subdivision there, it's the old, borrow pit out here on Division. Ken Walton's doing, Ken's here, and then his, design, guy from, Bester and Associates is here. Here, I'll let them talk a little bit to you. We need to approve the drainage plan. With Paul here, I haven't really had a chance to have him, or nobody look at it other than myself. From what it's showing, this parcel pretty much all slopes towards the pond. So there's, basically all they're doing is running ditches along the road on the one side and putting some surface inlets in the ditch to take the water towards the pond, so it's not running across the road or, across the yard a little
That's
bit.
that room from the airport, isn't it, where they dug that pit out
Yeah.
for the dirt?
Yeah, right there next to the housing addition on the north side.
Yeah, that does all slope down that way.
Yeah, so, they are requesting, usually on ponds, we have an overflow pipe, and, I think Andy was wanting to talk to you a little bit about, he'd done some calculations on that and stuff, and see what your thoughts are on letting that not happen. So,
Mr. Chairman, with that, may I be excused to head back?
Yes, you would.
It's falling apart in southern Indiana right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Be careful.
Weather.
Thanks for covering it.
You did get your full drive fixed, right?
Oh, yes, yeah, it was just balance and brakes.
Something simple.
The hill beats it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Ted. Safe travels. Good morning.
Good morning. It is morning, it seems like it should be afternoon by now. My name is Andy Mix, I am an engineer with Western Associates, working for Mr. Walton on this project. And Don pretty much stole all my thunder, there's not a whole lot to this. The entire site is just over, or just under 21 acres, there's 8 .3 acre pond in the middle, which is 20 to 20 some feet below the outside, right? It was a borrow pit. It's planned for 10 subdivision lots. We're planning on a standard rural road that meets or exceeds the county standards. So it's 2 9-foot lanes with a shoulder and a ditch on each side. When I say exceeds, Mr. Walton and I agree that water is the enemy of good roads, and so we're gonna beef up the cross-section of that road a little bit. Hopefully that'll last a little bit longer. We do periodically, it's almost a half a mile from beginning to end. So periodically, we will interrupt those roadside ditches, take that water down to the pond. And then at the very end, there's one last spillway that goes out to the pond. I call it a spillway, but it's an end section and a pipe and an end section with riprap on the downstream ends. There's a whole SWIP plan in there as well, to guard against erosion during and after construction. The number one issue that I wanted to come face to face, besides letting you see my beautiful face, was typically we would have an emergency overflow for a pond, and doing the calculations, there is a approximately 10-foot high patch of sand and gravel that runs right underneath the entire site and basically is at the level of where the pond water typically sits. According to the DNR, it has an exfiltration rate of something like 52 feet per day. Spread that out over the 8.3 acres and it's minuscule. In my opinion, there is absolutely no way that thing is ever gonna fill up. In order to need that emergency overflow. Secondly, there really is no outlet. The only outlet would be to the state highway right of way, which is, significantly higher than any of the modeling that I've done, including a 500-year storm. The 500-year storm comes up to something like, it's just less than elevation 627, and the top of this is 630, 632, 630. That's at the low end, and at 660 at the high end. So, doing the calculations, in my mind, this emergency overflow, although I understand you could require us to have it, is never gonna get used, and why put it in, just asking for another place for something to go on. So, that's why I'm here, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
You say the pond is 6 point something acres?
8.3.
8.3.
Yeah, these, on this, these IPs, that's where the inlet overloop, and they'll run it down to there, that one's pretty close to the edge of the water. The EDT, they stop further back from the water, and they're gonna put a riprap channel down the hillside to keep the water from washing out the roof of the main.
Yeah, that riprap is just mostly erosion control.
Are these housing sites?
That's just kind of a rough area where houses could be, where, rough area where they're.
That's the downslope, isn't it? Down the
Right,
bottom.
I envision that either 7 or 8 of those lots,
This is that way.
Yeah.
yes.
Because here's the vision right here. Let's put that out. Airports over here, the other housing divisions right here.
The pipes are at the outlet, that outlot, right?
Say that again?
There's an outlot,
Correct.
put on there where you had intentionally put, or set aside.
Right, so all of our drains are intentionally set on the lot lines or right near the lot lines so that we're not cutting through the middle of somebody's yard, right? And those, I think 7, it might be 8 of those lots potentially, in my mind, are really good candidates for walkout basements, that kind of thing, so you have a step, right?
Does it's like 20, 25 feet before it gets to the water if you're on top side.
Exactly, yeah. If you're on the top side, it's more than that, it's more than 40. So,
But
And those pads that are shown on there, there's a note, and it's kinda small, but you might not even notice it, but that, we're leaving it up to the home builder to decide exactly where they wanna put those pads. So those pads are on there just to show that it's possible,
Right.
right? They may move 10 feet, 20 feet, one way or the other.
So you go put a restriction on like the basement on the bottom, on how far down you can go, so
So-
they don't get flooded?
So there is a minimum lag specified in those plans, lag being lowest adjacent grade. And it's set at 32, which is, 6 feet above where the normal pool is, and 5 feet above anything that I was able to model using
So it looks like you're going to be developing on the west side of this pond, making a roundabout, or you gonna do anything on the other side?
So, on the east side, that lot has been sold on contract, and that 10 acres has been sold on contract to a builder who's gonna build a large house there.
Okay.
So
It's outside the subdivision.
it's gonna be, yeah, it's outside the subdivision, I think it's more of a parcelization.
So we're not gonna have a dispute like we had last week in here where somebody says, oh, you can't use my land?
Well, I can't promise you that. It's not in the subdivision, but it is planned to have easements, built into the
It's like a 30-acre parcel, so
land contract so that, it's avoided from the beginning.
Who you think, Senator Crocker?
I mean,
Any issues with what you've done?
yeah, sheet draining most of it anyway, and then, like I said, with the roads, they're gonna put the ditches in with the, inlets in there, so it keeps it from running across the road and so forth.
You're not gonna come to the commissioners later in years and ask us to take over that road, are you?
Yeah.
That road is being designed above standards so that it can be submitted to you.
So, you guys can vote on that, approve that subdivision based for the road, take over.
If it's built right, you benefit from adding a road, you know, so.
I had previously coordinated the design with, Paul.
Okay.
He's not part of it anymore, but he was,
Well, hopefully we have a new one coming in 2 weeks.
okay. Well, you're not gonna change standards as a result of that, are you? Please?
Standards we have for road have been for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a copy of the development guide, which is dated in 1993, and I think that's the latest one that I could find. Something like that.
So we exceed that.
But your road cross section is not unlike any of the other counties around here for the rural application.
Yeah, how deep is the pond out there?
It varies from, believe it or not, the center is the shallow part. It's 2 to 3 feet deep most of the time in the center, and around 8 to 10 feet deep around the perimeter.
Are you gonna plan to have it filled up more for the housing addition so we can do some good fishing?
I'm not gonna change anything there.
It sure looks good to me. So we have to approve these plans.
Yeah, for the drainage.
There's no reason to have another building.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, like I said,
But if we don't do this, what's the consequences of having the overflow? Are they gonna come back on us and sue us, because we didn't have it? I don't know.
Frankly, I think they're gonna sue me.
yeah.
10 years.
Yeah, we
And-
documented it, you know, the design, but, I don't,
Because if we approve his plan, I mean, I'm not saying the guy sitting here lying to us to save money, but
So, just,
I'm just throwing a wrench in there.
I completely understand what you're saying, so, doing all the math, right, and I modeled, again, the 500-year storm, which typically the regulations and ordinances are written around a 100-year storm. But I said, let's go further and just see what happens. So I modeled the 500-year storm. That comes that generates a runoff of, we'll call it just under 50 CFS, okay? Then I multiplied that by 1.25 just to be safe. That gave me a 61, 68 CFS. If I didn't add out over those, just the 8.2 acres of the pond, results in a necessary exfiltration rate of 0.00017 feet per second, or which, doing the unit calculation, is just over 7 inches per hour. And DNR and a couple other sources I was able to find think they rate that particular sand and gravel layer as having an exfiltration rate of 26 inches per hour, which means you put 2 feet 2 inches of water on top of it, it should go down in an hour, okay? So then I threw another safety factor on there, and I said, well, I'm gonna use 13 instead of 26, safety factor of 2, and we're still 176% of the 500-year flood. There's a lot of redundancies built into that, so I'm confident in saying what I'm saying, because I don't wanna get sued either. It's my state line.
If you just tell me when the last 500-year flood was, then
That's all probabilities.
Or they probably wasn't there when it happened.
200-year floods, right, and 2 years ago too. I don't know.
July 4th flood?
Yeah, there you go.
Probably.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, and technically, everyone throws around the term 100-year flood and 500-year flood, but it's not really right. What it should say for the 100-year flood is you have a 1% chance of that rain event happening in any given year. And there's some real nerdy things about that as to why that one is correct and one isn't. Because it's not, this flood is gonna happen once in 100 years. You got a 1% chance of it happening this year. I also have a 1% chance of it happening next year and the year after that. And frankly, we're using 100 and 150 years worth of data to extrapolate all this stuff. I mean, if you were a true surveyor, like someone who takes surveys for a living, you'd want a much bigger database, but we don't have it. It just doesn't exist.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Alright, motion and second, to approve the drainage plan as presented, all in favor? Aye, motion passed.
Thank you. Just clarification, this is a drainage approval, then it still goes to APC or the council, or however that works.
Yeah, ABC.
So this is just one checkbox, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We look forward to this being constructed and full of houses.
Positive that.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on, basically, mileage for the month of January was 149 miles. We did have contractors out working that, they're looking at stuff that month. I was having them give us price estimates on some ditches, dipping and stuff like that, so I was out meeting them, so that's where the mileage came in for that month. And then, money we collected off the permits for January is $475, so I think that's all we got for the year. With that, next drainage board meeting on the 15th of March at 11. And then we have that hearing at 4:30 in the community building.
Any input from the public?
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn, second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
He killed an avalanche here one
I took my file and put it in on desk.
Last month's meeting,
We did good.
you signed your paper, and I give it to us.
Yeah, I did.
He said he
I gave it to you because I signed it down there in the corner. Hell, that's probably your file.
We got another.
Yeah, I just get ready to bring it. No, I just signed it.
You gave it to me this week.
No, I signed another one for this person. There you go, dear, I'll hand it right to you, that way Donnie don't lose it. Yeah, send me another one. Yeah, all right. Off to a plane to snow. Yeah, send me a new one there.
Okay, I'm confused. Very good.
We'll get, yeah, we'll have that. For the $75.
Seems like good.
Are you,
Yeah, that's what covers it,
It's
so.
gonna go back to the water.
so then you're gonna assess?
Sometime here, we come in, we'll do
I got
some
everything
research.
removed.
They're gonna open the
No.
door, you come on. Take care of it.
It got stopped,
Maybe next week.
but it really didn't get stopped by
Thank you.
It's gonna look nice from the highway too.
Yeah.
So we've been.
Don't look longer than it has looked.
Get it back on there.
And was that 1999 we got started?
The
99, the farmer had a tile system put in to run through the river. And then 2000, I think.
2000, and
Taken off the
2000,
side.
when all of a sudden it came out.
I thought I had an idea of what was going on, and then all of a sudden you said something.
Septic job from yesterday, and it's required to blow some.
Put a wrench in there.
It's been a long day.
Yes, it
So
has,
he's-
yes.
Yeah, welcome to Lincoln.
4 week though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he dug it.
Okay, you good?
Thanks, good, yeah.
$1,000 on fine.
And you're gonna send me a meeting announcement for that membership next month,
He said, I wish it
Yes.
was fine, it's small.
Yeah.
the special meeting.
Yes, yes,
Just gonna make sure they didn't change it to us today and,
yeah,
they didn't come up, but.
No, I get it, that's fine, we got plenty of time.
you never know.